Hello, I made it. Who is out there? I'll just give it a couple of seconds for it to kind of fire up and see who's out there and going to join me today. I made it back. This has been a long time coming, it feels like. Last Monday, I started the Transformational Horsemanship series, which is what I've called this series of Facebook Live sessions. And then took a rapid downhill plunge. Good morning, Nan. Yay. I was hoping you'd be able to join me. I was just saying last week, I kicked off this time last week thinking that we would be on this high of like Facebook Lives for the coming 2 weeks. And then as of Monday afternoon, I took a rapid downhill plunge and ended up with a chest infection and then pneumonia and all kinds of crazy things. And it was a very unexciting week and things didn't quite go to plan. So here I am, so excited to be here. We are kicking off. I think my voice is back. I'm not going to be coughing too much. It's all systems go. What I wanted to have a chat about today was something that's been a really cool part of the last 12 months for me, and that is really reforming or reframing the process of goal setting. Goal setting in and of itself has been a big part, for obvious reasons, of the work that I do. Good morning, Noreen. And I know that many of you set goals. You know, it's something, especially this time of year, that we all kind of get on board with, and there's loads of new year, new you type slogans that get bandied around the internet and different magazines. And in the past, you know, I've really jumped on that wagon myself. This isn't a kind of talk in downplaying or putting goals down by any stretch. It's just my understanding of how the goal setting practice, or the weaknesses really that come up as a result of the traditional goal setting model, and the fact that I really think that there's a better way forward. So today is going to be a discussion about some of those flaws I see within that system. And you might recognize for yourself where they exist for you or already be aware of them. And then just discussing how it is we can switch things around, not so we're sacrificing results, actually so we're maximizing results. And that comes with stepping into a much more process-oriented, practice-oriented approach so that you are able to really embody the practice of your dream now rather than setting an arbitrary goal and moving towards that in the future. Good morning, Bernadette. Oh, yay, Deb. So lovely to see you all. Vivian, yay. So it's just told me that my high quality video mode has been deactivated. So we'll just see. Can you guys see me okay and hear me okay? Hopefully that's the case. I think the sound should be okay. So we'll just forge on regardless. Vivian, yeah, it really is a struggle for everyone to make realistic goals. And the thing that is really apparent to me is we don't actually know what's possible for ourselves. We don't actually know what's realistic. And this works for us or works to our detriment in both directions. Because we don't know what's realistic, sometimes we undersell ourselves and we really don't put the we don't commit to what is really possible for us because we are limiting ourselves based on some negative frameworks that we've set up, be those negative belief systems, be those experiences that have conditioned thoughts that have come as a result of experiences in the past. And in the other direction, what I see a lot as well is an intense amount of excitement around the goal setting process, but that isn't comparable to what that same person is willing to commit to. So instead of seeing a list of goals, what I really want to see is a list of commitments. Like, what is it that you're actually willing to do on a daily basis to commit yourself to realizing your dreams? And that word dream is what I've actually substituted in for goal. I know that that can seem like semantics, but it's actually a really huge leap, because goals in and of themselves are arbitrary outside points. They are essentially a result that is always outside of our control. And what I want to do is actually work to a system that is in alignment with what it is we actually need to practice, what it is we actually want to commit ourselves to, and what is my dream? What is your dream? You know, and this is one of the first things that we get to. I've created a whole pathway for this in my membership program, Joyride. And the very first step is, what's your dream? And lots of us have goals, but when you actually ask that question, it's like, I don't actually know. Like, what is that? Because it's very easy to create a series of goalposts that we can tick off and hit or not. And that's a whole nother story that we're going to get to as well. But actually, when it comes to moving in alignment with your own values and your principles and the types of characteristics that you want to embody, that's a much deeper layer. That's a much deeper realization. And within that realization, there is also a comparably much deeper or higher level of motivation that goes alongside of that. Because when you define your dream, you're able to define your mission. And your mission is what I define as your defined daily practice of your dream. So what are your values? What are your principles? How is it that you're going to actually practice your dream today, as opposed to move towards some point in the future that immediately juxtaposes where you are now to where it is that you want to be? Oh, is it going funny? I hope it's not dropping in and out here. I wonder why that is. That's a bit annoying, isn't it? Let me have a look. It should be fine. Sound dropping in and out here too. Okay, we'll try and keep going, and we'll see whether that picks up. Sorry for that. Otherwise, what I will do is actually switch off the computer and jump onto my phone and see if that helps. Can you still hear me? Is that kind of helpful? All right, so one of the reasons, where were we? One of the reasons that I think that the goal setting process has become so results oriented, obviously because the actual process itself is very results focused, is that generally as a culture, you know, and as a community, we're trained to look for the highs. We're constantly looking for the peaks in the process. And what happens when we're constantly looking for the peaks and really expecting a series of high points is that when we're in a low point or we reach a plateau, we inherently start to feel like something is wrong. And there was a really awesome question that I had in the membership group the other day, which was all about lacking motivation. And the post went along the lines of, you know, I've always been really enthusiastic about my riding and about my horses, and for what's happening at the moment is I just feel like the bottom has fallen out of the ship. You know, I've lost motivation. I don't have the same drive to get out there on a daily basis. I feel like it's much more arduous than it should be. I'm not experiencing the same level of joy or inspiration that I feel should be there when, you know, we're talking about something that naturally I'm passionate about and I love. And for me, this is a really interesting topic because as part of life, you know, we're always going to experience the highs, but we're also going to experience the lows. And more than either of those things, we're going to experience the flat points where we're kind of trucking along and perhaps not experiencing any great variant in emotional range on either side of those two scales, and not only emotional range, but also progress. You know, because there is that period that we need to engage in and really involve ourselves in where we're practicing the ABCs. And that can be boring on some occasions. You know, it can be repetitive and it can be seemingly endless. But when we're in that cycle, we feel like something is wrong. Instead of embracing the plateau and saying, you know, this is actually a really important part of me up leveling and mastering what it is that I'm looking to master, we start to question ourselves and think, well, if I'm not automatically feeling this high level of passion and enthusiasm and excitement, something's wrong. And what I want to reframe is that when we switch our focus away from achieving a specific result, when we switch our focus away from just getting this particular outcome, then we can gear it back and say, what is it that I need to practice today? And what is it that I need to embody today in order to be the horse person that I need to be to achieve this dream of mine? And when we do that, we always set ourselves up for success, because you can identify the elements within what it is that you're looking to achieve or create, as part of your riding life, and say, well, what is it that I need to commit to on a daily basis in order to bring that to life? So we have two elements to that. We have the controllable elements and the transformable elements. And transformables is just a word that I made up because it seemed to really fit into what it was that I wanted to get across. So the controllables are the very physical elements that I see us needing to put in place. These are the nuts and bolts, the 1, 2, 3s that we need to practice in order to master a specific skill. And those need to be done with a degree of consistency in order for us to be able to up level and get to that next stage that we're looking to move towards. The transformables are the being elements. And these are often the things that the goal setting approach leaves out. They focus very much on what it is that we need to do, but not what it is that we need to be. Transformables then are, what is it that I need to be in order to reach this level of mastery, or in order for me to be the horse person that I want to be? And it might be, well, I need to practice patience. I need to practice bravery. I need to practice gratitude, or I need to practice my consistency. All of those things are things that we can actually decide to do when we wake up. And when we transform into those practices, what happens is, instead of waiting for them to come to us, so instead of seeing a particular feeling state as a solid, not as a solid, but as something that is actually we're going to arrive at, we see them as things that we actually need to emanate in order to experience. These emotions like patience, like bravery, like joy, like gratitude, like, anything really that you want to list, these are things that you actively step into in the morning. It's like, this is what I want to be more of. And so I allow this practice to inform what it is that I'm doing on a daily basis. And when you do that, you have a process-oriented approach to your horse riding. You have a process-oriented approach to your horsemanship that really allows you to pay attention to the process and sets you up for success, because you are always working within what is within your control and influence. One of the big questions I get is, well, doesn't this really start to, results are important. Let's put it that way. Results are important. Isn't letting go of a goal-setting approach letting go of the importance of creating results? And I'd say absolutely not. It actually puts you 100% in the driving seat. If you are focusing on the process towards mastery, if you have identified your dream, identified your mission, and then from that place identified the smallest version of your dream. And this is how I start to distill the process down. We start with this bigger vision, and then we break it down into what it is that you can do with what you have now in the position that you're in. And then we work out those controllable and transformable elements, and we put that into practice. When you do that, you actually maximize your results, because you're always working to what is within your control. And not only that, you set yourself up with a success model that is fully attainable, because you have the ability to practice the elements that allow you to fulfill that definition for yourself. Success, of course, is such a fluid and subjective, word to discuss, an idea to discuss. But really, the model that I've started to work with success is just doing what you can with what you have right where you are now. So you don't need to wait for someone else. You don't need to actually get out there and, achieve this specific marker point in order for you to really understand that you have had a successful outcome or a successful experience. That becomes something that you can really step into right now and start to activate with everything that you have. And when you do that, it becomes such an enriching and inspiring process. I'll tell you a little secret. Even though for the last few years I have practiced and set goals for myself, I always found it really boring. Like, the idea of setting a goal is lovely and exciting, and I'm like, yeah, I really want to be at that point. But as soon as you do that, it comes, or the motivation for setting the goal really comes from a position of lack. And for me, it didn't create that intrinsic motivation that I'm looking for, because all it did was cause me to shoot my focus forward into the future towards a place that I wanted to be at. And as soon as I did that, I felt a discrepancy between where it is that I am now and that place. And even though the idea was for that to delineate or to refine and define the process to get to that place, you still have one eye on the result and only one eye on the path. And when you do that, you're really in this constant tussle with yourself of knowing that what you have done on that particular day is absolutely the best that you had to offer, and you're putting everything that you can into it. And yet there's still a sense of dissatisfaction because you're not at that point yet. So that time frame, or that time line that you set up for yourself with goals, is often hugely problematic. And I think that once we really understand that we don't have control over that what we do have control over is everything that we're able to do right now and everything that we're able to be right now, it flips it over on its head. And it's it's really hard to describe. I know that a few people who've gone through or started the process with me in Joyride have said, wow, this really, hits home for me, because I've felt really dissatisfied with goals, or felt like I haven't been doing a good job of it, or they've kind of made me feel almost shameful or embarrassed. And I'm like, yeah, I get that, and you're totally not the only one. And that's actually the next part that I wanted to discuss. I've just kind of written a few things down so I don't get off track, which is what I have a tendency to do, which is you don't have to win a championship, you don't have to win an award or do this particular thing in order to really commit to being an excellent horse person. You don't have to do those things. It doesn't exclude those things. But as soon as you start to switch around from a results-oriented focus towards an actual practice and process-oriented focus, then again, and I keep repeating this, you start to focus 100% on what is within your control and what it is that you're able to commit to. And that is the biggest thing. It's like, what is it that you're doing on a daily basis to actually manifest your dreams or to live your dreams now? Is it proportional? A lot of the time I hear these, dream ideas or goal ideas, and yet what it is that is being actioned on a daily basis is not proportional to that. And so this is where we have to start to bridge that gap within ourselves. We have to say, what is it that we're willing to commit to on a daily basis in order to bring that to life? And is that actually what we're doing now? What is it that we need to let go of? What is it that we need to introduce more of? And so things which become non-negotiable part of, things that become a non-negotiable part of the process are managing your self-talk. Essentially anything that comes with committing to the development of mental strength is a non-negotiable. It's a non-negotiable part of the process, regardless of how you frame yourself, regardless of whether you see yourself as competitive or non-competitive, or, it doesn't matter where you exist on the scale, and that scale is only self-delineated. Self-talk is totally non-negotiable, and self-talk isn't the white space chatter that we have in our minds. Self-talk is how we are intentionally talking to ourselves. If you find yourself intentionally talking to yourself in a way that is not conducive to you maximizing your effort, or to you feeling like you have the capacity to do what it is that you want, or if you find yourself habitually talking yourself down or talking yourself out of something, then that's something that we need to look at, because that is within your control. Is it easy? No, maybe not, but it is 100% within your control. And so the practice of that becomes something that is really important for you to focus on. Your perspective, what it is you're choosing to take from experiences, again, your attitude, 100% within your control. That is a non-negotiable part of your daily practice. The same thing with the processes, like what it is you're committing to as part of your routine. That is 100% within your control. It might not feel like that, because there are elements, of course, which come in, like work life and life with family and all of those things. I get that, because I'm in the tussle of that myself, definitely in the rush hour of it. But we need to say, okay, so success is what we can do now with what we have right where we are. So success on one day might be managing your self-talk, reading something that really uplifts and inspires you or furthers you towards where it is that you want to go, and watching a training tutorial. It might not necessarily mean being out there and writing, because on some days that's not actually going to be actionable for you. But you still have elements, you still have practices and principles which you're putting into place, which actually transform you into that person that you are seeking to be. And not only seeking to be, you're practicing that right now. So it doesn't become a future space that you're moving towards, it becomes an embodiment on a daily basis. A small embodiment that you step into, a practice that you step into. And that's where the empowerment arises, because it transforms you from a focus where you're shooting ahead of yourself and saying, that's the place I need to be, that's the place I need to be, to being like, who is it that I'm going to be now, that I'm going to be today for my horse? You know, how is it that I can step into the space, step into the round pen or the arena or the competition, you know, space with them and be the person that they need me to be now? And so if I can see in the bigger scale of things what that looks like, I can filter that down to the smallest version of that and say, how is it that I'm going to do that right now? How is it that I can be that person today? How is it that I can do that right now in order to step into that space, so that there isn't this space, there isn't this gap, there isn't this chasm between me and a goal. It's me in a practice and a process that I do daily, that I commit to regularly, that actually sees me, excuse me, move forward towards that result. How are we getting on? Hi Dale. Hi Nan, still glitchy. I hope it's kind of evening out. Facebook Live can be a little bit glitchy. I apologize if the stream's a little bit funny. So the biggest problem, I think, and this is really getting down to the talk, excuse me, on worthiness, is regardless of whether or not you achieve a goal, what tends to happen with the traditional goal setting model, and I've seen this countless times, so this isn't like a theoretical assessment, this is an experiential assessment. They have the ability, if you let them, if you're not using them in the right way, to challenge your worthiness, to challenge who it is or define your worth as a person. And this, when this happens, this is a hugely problematic part of goal setting. Many of you will be able to understand what it is I'm talking about. So let me give you some really tangible examples. What I often see is someone has set a goal and they've set it within a specific time frame. And for whatever reason, and there could be a myriad of valid reasons why the goal wasn't achieved by this specific date, instead of seeing it as a failure of process, it becomes a failure of self. It becomes, I am a crappy horse person, or I am unable to do this, or I am useless, or I am not good enough. And these might not be outward expressions, but this is the internal dialogue that we have with ourselves. We feel a sense of shame, a lack of worthiness, a lack of what I call not good enoughness as a result of not having achieved a specific goal, regardless of how big or small that goal is. And that comes by attaching that sense of worthiness to the achievement of a specific result. When we do this, we are automatically setting ourselves up for failure. Sometimes we might do well because, for whatever reason, the stars have aligned and we've managed to achieve that goal. And as a result of that, we feel that we're able to experience a sense of, contentment or success or fulfillment as a result of those two things coming into alignment. But more often than not, if we don't achieve that goal, then we see that again as an attack on our worthiness and who we are as a person. The problem with this is that results are always outside of our control and influence. So ultimately, we're setting ourselves up for a fail by allowing how it is we feel and what it is that we believe and the amount of effort we're investing in something on something completely outside of our control. And that is never a good idea. I'm sure that I don't really have to go into that too much, but you can see how that could be a hugely problematic cycle to get into. Now, if this happens enough, if you maybe set one goal and it doesn't come off and you start to feel that little bit of a chipping away of your self-worth, and then it happens again, what happens over time is either you stop setting goals altogether, you start to actually diminish your sense of self-worth and your belief about what you think is possible for you, and the cycle starts to compound on itself. And the amount of instances I see of goal shame, which is that I haven't achieved a specific goal, therefore that means I'm useless. Goal panic, which is I don't even know what goal to set because last time I set a goal, it didn't come off, and I don't know whether I'm good enough for that, and I kind of want that, but I'm not sure I should go for that because it feels like too much for me. So we immobilize ourselves because we're limited in our ability to see what's possible by that framework, by that limiting belief model that we've set up for ourselves. And what's another? Goal shame, goal panic, those are two of the biggest ones. The other one is basically goal fear, where you set a goal, but what if? What if you're not good enough? What if that doesn't come off? And you can see how that narrative or that mindset is shifted hugely from one that is, how can I embody the principles and practices that this brings to life in me, how it's very much not about that, and it's about achieving a specific result. As soon as that result becomes important, and this is something where the transactional horsemanship side of things comes into play as well, and you'll see this a lot in the competition arena, there are many ways to achieve a certain result. Not all of them healthy for you, not all of them healthy for your horse, not all of them in alignment with your values and ethics. However, if the weight or the expectation of that result becomes enough, then we may be motivated to take routes which aren't necessarily the best ones to take. And this is where we see shortcuts. This is where we see emphasis on, ways of horsemanship which actually compromise our horses and compromise ourselves. And that is because we have become fixated on a result at the expense of process, at the expense of everything else. And so shifting away from that and actually saying, what is it that I need to embody? What is it that I need to practice on a daily basis? How is it that I'm going to practice my dream today? Then that is something that's always within the zone of what you're able to influence. It's something that will always set you up for a successful outcome and will always ensure that you're moving in alignment with what it is that you value and what it is that you believe in. And to me, that's really the essence of the practice. That's really the essence of what we're out there to do. And it allows us to make sure that the results that we produce are founded in a really healthy and wholehearted way. Yeah. Dale, bingo on the goal setting makes me feel like a failure. Yeah. It's interesting because goals, I think that goal setting model, excuse me, it's come from a very commercial place. It's come from, it's a very linear process. It's like 1 + 1 = 2. And when we are working with horses, I think there's so much that comes into it that is separate to logical thought. Like logically, if we were to look at horses and look at ourselves as fitting particular molds where we can predict certain outcomes, then you would say, do this twice and you'll get this particular result. And maybe that's the case for other things, but when it comes to horses, I really don't, that's just an equation that doesn't add up. We know that because they are conscious creatures. We are conscious creatures. We come together, bringing whatever it is we're feeling on that particular day and whatever it is that they're feeling on a particular day. And sometimes those two energies fuse really effortlessly together and things go really well. And sometimes they don't. And being fixated on results can work to the detriment of that because it creates a level of frustration that's unable to be worked through. Frustration really is you being unable to produce a result within the time frame that you wanting to produce it in. And so you can step out of being frustrated if you can constantly see what it is you are presented with and what it is you're involved with as an opportunity to practice what it is that you want to be. You know, for me, I'm seeking every day to practice patience, kindness, and braveness. And when I do that, I know braveness isn't a word, but it's a word that I use. And when I do that, everything that comes my way is an opportunity to practice those qualities. So you can set them up as an intention at the start of your session together, and it just allows you to negotiate the experience in a completely different way, one that's always within your control and one that sees you really anchored to a place that is, again, in alignment with what it is that you're wanting to practice and produce. What else have we got there? Hi, Courtney. Yeah, so I'm really keen, I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on this, because I know that there's a lot of people out there that the goal setting practice and processes don't work for. And I used to try to fit us all into that box, you know, and now I'm like, instead of thinking that it's a failure of ourselves to be able to get the most out of that process, I think it's actually a failure of process. I think it's a failure of practice. And so being able to turn that around, excuse me, and introduce a different way of going about things is really important. You know, we need to be constantly searching for that betterment, for that way of stepping into things that allows us to be better horse people in the way that our horses deserve. On that same stream of thought, with thinking about the traditional model of goal setting, you know, that is, and the linear trajectory of that, because it is a very straight, very type A process. Some people that's going to suit, but many people it's not going to suit. And the other thing that I feel like it left out, or it leaves out, is in order for us to really come to the party, you know, in order for us to be receptive and engaged horse people with our horses, we can't just be stuck in the logical mind. We have to be accessing our intuition. You know, you need to be able to be receptive to that flash of insight that might tell you what the solution is or what is needed in that particular moment that will be outside the realm of logical thought. You need to be able to access your emotional intelligence and say, what is it that I'm feeling? What does that mean? How is it that I can move forward with that information, you know, honored, and actually create something that is positive and beneficial for both of us? So bringing in all of those elements, all of those quadrants, which I referred to last week, your intuitive intelligence, your emotional intelligence, your physical intelligence, and your logical intelligence is really important. And understanding your dream, understanding your mission, defining your practices and processes really allows all four of those elements to be considered. Whereas a traditional linear straight line goal setting process really just pays attention to analytical thought. It's you sitting down with a pen and paper and saying, I want this result within this time, and it's going to be at this place, and it's going to look like this. Maybe it'll come off, maybe it won't, but it's outside of your control in either case. So really cycling it back and embodying the practice, embodying the process, starting to sound like a broken record, excuse me, is absolutely where it's at. And it will enrich you in every way. This is where it becomes the practice of transformative horsemanship, because you are required to step into who it is you want to be right now, not this person in the future. You need to be that person today. You practice your dream. You don't wait for it. And then when the opportunities open up for you, you are already ready and there to take them, because that's something you've been stepping into every day. You've primed yourself for the moment that opportunity comes up, but you don't wait for it. You absolutely are ready, because that's something that you're practicing and embodying. Awesome. Cindy, yes, it does apply to human relationships. It totally does. Our horses are the gift in that sense, where we're motivated to improve ourselves for them, and then the flow-on effect becomes evident in every area of our life. Susie, I think I'm a goal panicker. Yeah, Many of us are. And, you know, we don't know what's realistic. Like I say, we don't know what's possible. So it's just setting yourself up to be in the position to be able to embrace whatever comes your way. And that comes with really distilling your dream down into the smallest version that's possible. And then again, stepping into the practices. It's beautiful and it's really exciting. And I know even as I was writing the content for the course in Joyride, it was like, oh, this is cool. I love doing this. Like, and it had that natural energy. Whereas when I've done the goal setting process in the past, it's been a little bit like a maths equation for me. And I'm like, yeah, it sort of feels a bit dry and not quite my vibe. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for hanging out. And thank you again for your patience, because I know that I did say that this was supposed to be last Tuesday, so we're a little bit behind schedule. Tomorrow or I'll be back again, same time. I don't even know what the topic is tomorrow. I'll have to have a look at that. But I've got a whole list of topics laid out for the next 10 days that I'm excited to cover, that sort of interweave and thread through each other in similar ways in terms of the principles, but definitely very defined topics in and of themselves. If you have any thoughts about goal setting or where it's tripped you up or what's worked for you, then really keen to hear that. And for those of you who are in Joyride as well, I know some of you are here. If you want to share some of your thoughts on the process-oriented approach that we're going through, that would be super cool. There is, just for the next week, it's finishing up soon, but there's a special offer where you can join me in Joyride and you can get your first month for $20, which is, it's normally $49. So a bit of a discount there. And I'd love to have you join me. You can check it out on the link. But tomorrow we'll be back. And like I say, I can't really remember what we're talking about tomorrow. I should have put that up before, but I'll post that shortly after and I'll be going through your comments. So thank you so much. All right, team, have a fabulous day. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.